Welcome to Alfalfa, ladies and gentlemen. We are back from ETHDenver. I would say it was quite a successful trip. Very different for each person, though. Steven decided to hit the eject button.
Wow, calling him out.
Well, it's going to be part of your story, right? You're going to tell us why.
I mean, I stayed for most of it. Come on.
He got exactly what he wanted. He met Aubrey and then he bounced.
He met
Which
them all.
which
He met
which
them all.
presentation was your favorite, Steven?
Oh, it's so hard to choose. I mean,
Some of us made it to the talks. Some of us did not.
I was
Some of
watching
us-
a couple on YouTube today, though. Actually, I checked out
good.
Hasib Kurishi's DeFi 2.0 talk. You know, it's a good little refresher. I mean, kind of already knew all of it, to be honest, but like somebody might find that like very useful.
Where can people watch the talks? Like, are they public
There's an
live?
ETHDenver YouTube channel, so you just pop on there.
So yeah, ETHDenver is this event we just went to. It's like the pinnacle main event for all Ethereum once a year for the US. And it's in Denver, and it just happened. It's still happening, actually. Yeah, I'll find the YouTube and put in the notes for people. But I mean, everyone was there. Vitalik, all your favorite crypto thought leaders and influencers, and we had an amazing time. More on why Steven abandoned ship. Later, we'll talk about some of our ETHDenver, like just fun and learnings and things like that. Also, we're posting these videos on YouTube. If you aren't aware of that already, if you want to kind of feel like you're in the conversation, literally, physically with us, check out the YouTube and subscribe. And we're growing, guys. We're growing. Yes, Nick.
We give a quick shout out to Jack, commented on our last video asking about the looks trade that Steven mentioned, asking how to go short on looks through the perps, ftx.com. And thanks for the comment. And thanks for listening.
Yeah, we love that stuff. So if you tune into the episode and you want to generally engage with us, I think YouTube's probably the best way to ask questions, and then we can always follow back on them. We can literally answer your questions on YouTube, or we can hit them up on the next episode. So we're growing, as I said. Share us with your friends. Keep spreading the alfalfa. And, I mentioned last time as well, we're really going to start with the community side of things. I think we've landed on Discord is what we're going to do. More on that later. But if you want to be invited to our alfalfa private squad, hit us up on Twitter and drop your email as well in the DM. So if you just go to @alfalfapod on Twitter, slide in, send a DM, drop us your email as well, and we'll add you to the list. Anything else on that? Any other housekeeping, guys?
Is Fast Money next?
That was beautiful.
All right. So we have this new segment idea. Basically, we're going to front load the alfalfa and give you what we really think you're ultimately here for more than everything, more than anything, which is like the alfalfa itself. So we're going to literally do a fire round robin, up to 2 minutes each style sharing of the moves we've made over the last week and the moves we're planning on making. And if you guys like this, we're just going to keep on doing it and evolving it and making it better. So, Mr. DeFi Diva, you have the floor. The timer is on.
Timer.
I'm talking for more than 2 minutes, let's be honest here. So kind of rough out there, obviously. My biggest play of the week is I implemented some hedged farming strategies. The hedgeor. This is like a really great technique, actually, when you're in a bear and you still want to generate some alpha. So I think a lot of people are familiar with yield farming, right? Where you put a couple tokens in a pool and you earn a reward, right? So if you farm, say, like ETH and USDC, that could be like a delta neutral strategy. Like if you thinking the market's going to go sideways, you get some ETH, you get some USDC, you put it in a pool. And if the market goes sideways, you just make a bunch of yield and everything's great. What I did is I used a hedge strategy, right? So I took some ETH as collateral on Avalanche, and I borrowed a bunch of AVAX. So normally I might like take AVAX I have and put it in a pool with a bunch of stable coins. But what I did in this instance was I sold half of the AVAX for stables and then entered the pool. So you're now farming, but you also have a slight short position on your Avalanche. So you now have a portion of your portfolio that is earning a bunch of yield, but is also short the market. I did a little bit of this on Phantom as well. Phantom is, probably going to go into the absolute toilet if we go full bear. So that'll be kind of a good hedge play for the people who are like really advanced. This is like an interesting move using leverage farming, like Alpha Mora, which is on AVAX. So you can actually take a base Avalanche position. You can say take like 100K worth of Avalanche, and you can actually set it up as like a $400,000 farm position that's also like a $200,000 short position built into it without using like a bunch of capital. So that was my main kind of farming play this week, setting up some hedges. And if the hedges go bad, it means the rest of my portfolio is doing really well. So I'm kind of happy either way, which is good. Not really in the mood to buy a lot right now yet, to be honest. I did buy a little Bitcoin last week. Other thing I did, I absolutely aped the crap out of Raid Party. You guys in that?
Really? So did Jason.
Yeah, I think I bought 40 heroes this week. So wow. And a whole bunch of fighters. The game's it's been delayed a bunch. Raid Party's a kind of like Wolf Game-esque sort of, like what would you call it? Like it's kind of like World of Warcraft-y, but like it's not like you have to like actively play it. It's like one of these NFT games. It's been delayed a bunch. People in NFT land have zero patience, so it's just been tanking and tanking and tanking with every delay. But it's gonna launch. It's supposed to launch, I think, March 4th. I want to say, or that week. I was talking to my buddy, did a little kind of math on this. So the way the game works is, you've got like a hero and you have to pair him up with 6 or 7 of the fighters. And then you sort of like farm a bunch of tokens and then you turn those into more fighters, kind of like that Wolf Game thing where you're basically farming and creating new characters. But there's only like a 2-to-1 ratio of fighters to heroes, right? And most of these heroes have like 6 slots. So the theory is sort of that once the game launches, everybody's going to be like, oh shit, I want to fill up all the slots on my heroes. But there's less than 2 heroes for every fight, two fighters for every hero in the game. So initially you're going to have this mad run for fighters and you're going to see fighters kind of moon. But then the thought is that as the game goes on, people are going to be minting a lot of fighters, right? And it takes a long time to be able to burn one of the fighters for like a hero. So there's then going to be this other imbalance the other way where suddenly people have all these fighters that they've made and they're realizing like, oh crap, I don't have any heroes. So then there's going to be a run for heroes. So I'm not really planning on playing the game. I'm planning on just sort of like kind of quick flipping the heroes and the fighters as the game goes on like that, and taking my new stash of ETH.
What's the floor on those, Steven?
Last I checked, you could get a hero for like around 0.9 ETH and like 0.4 or so for a fighter. I think last time I checked.
Cool.
So yeah.
Another follow-up question. You said you borrowed AVAX against your ETH. Where did you go to borrow? Like what protocol did you use to borrow?
I did that on Aave. So okay. Aave on Avalanche. So you put a bunch of ETH in there and you borrow AVAX. It's good too because you're borrowing a non-stable versus a non-stable. You can borrow like a lot. Like AVAX isn't going to double overnight and liquidate you. So you can borrow like 70-75% if you want to. Make a pretty big position out of it.
Good to point out that's like a cheap way to go short, right? So if you're borrowing AVAX against your ETH and you sell that AVAX for stables, if AVAX goes down, the amount that you owe in USD goes down in value while you still have your chunk of stable coins there. So you might have a nice little profit.
Yeah, well, I'm in California too, right? So like I don't really want to sell stuff if I don't have to. Like selling sucks. It's a taxable event. So this is like a cool strategy where you can kind of reduce the overall risk of your portfolio without creating a taxable event. And you kind of have like multiple ways to win if you do this, right? Because you could put on this trade and then the market could go sideways, but you make a bunch of yield. So it's still kind of a win. It's like having like a short hedge position that kind of like pays for itself in the long run.
What's the yield position generating? What kind of APR?
So I did it using Alfalfa, which is a more complicated way to do it. If you're a power user, you can like configure the exact amount of AVAX versus stables you borrow. That's what's really cool about leveraged yield farming, is that you can create a position that is like neutral, or a position that's an artificial short, or a position that's like an artificial long, depending on the way you do it. So I sort of like max borrowed AVAX against my AVAX, which means it's going to sell half of that for stables and put a short position on. Last I checked, I mean, the yield is very high. Like there's been a lot of trading activity, so the yield was around like 150% APR. Yeah. Which is massive. A lot of that is due to kind of short-term volatility, and it's important to keep in mind that you're going to have impermanent loss too, possibly, right? So you may end up with like 30-40% of impermanent loss, which kind of takes away on your yield. But if you kind of understand what you're doing, and like I would stress, like it's probably better for most people to just go into Trader Joe, right, and just go into that AVAX USDC pool, because you can't get liquidated, right? You just be comfy and just kind of collect your yield, and maybe your short prints a little bit of money and go on with your life. That's probably what I recommend for most people. But if you want to experiment with the leveraged yield farming and kind of look into that, because you're a bit of a gambling person or like to dig a little deep, Alfalfa is pretty cool. You can also put this trade on using Taro on Phantom if you want to do it on the Phantom side of things. But Alfalfa is like a little bit more powerful of an app. The Taro app's a little bit more primitive, so it's not quite as good, or it's a little harder to put on these artificial shorts. It's my week, hedging and aping in the raid party. Oh, I also bought a bunch of the littles, but that's just because my buddy told me to, so I don't have a I did dig up an old tweet. Though, that Cool Cats tweeted like back in early December, kind of linking the littles to the milk token. And the littles has been like supposedly having an announcement for weeks, and it's been like kind of delayed. So the thought is that they're going to announce some sort of integration with the Cool Cats ecosystem, and I'm hoping if that happens that we get a little moon town, Just trying to make some ETH here while we descend into the darkness of the bear here. Playing with my JPEGs.
Awesome. That was a solid 20 minutes.
Surprised the dictator didn't come in and
just adds a zero. It was his first time, We gotta let him count.
Do you have a mute button, Armand?
I do.
You should
I totally watch this. Ready? He's gone. He's totally gone.
The joke is that Steven, you have to actually unmute yourself, so it's really
you have to
double mean.
There it goes.
Oh my God, you muted me.
Welcome back.
We can.
Nick gave me the idea. I never even had the idea.
Right? We just timestamped that for everybody who wants to skip ahead of that.
Oh God, that was perfect.
That was great, Steven.
That was amazing. I'm letting him calibrate. He's finding the zone of the fire round. All right,
maybe we should open with the more basic stuff next time. Ease the people into it.
Nah, you bring it.
Right, that was really good. Hedged, leveraged farming.
I already thought of 3 people I'm sending that clip to, so that was fire. No, really, I did. I have so many people asking me about that stuff lately. All right, who's up?
Okay.
Go ahead.
Come on.
Me?
Yeah.
No, why don't you go?
All right.
You sure?
Right.
Nick, go.
See. I real quick. I set up another wallet on Optimism. Sent a small bit of ETH over, and just provided liquidity in Uniswap pool. I think I did ETH in RETH. RETH is the Rocket pool, like staked ETH. So I didn't want to sell half my ETH to contribute to a liquidity pool. So I used 2 kind of forms of ETH, and probably not going to make any trading fees off of it. but essentially it's kind of like an airdrop farm. So I'm hoping that, in a year from now, Optimism is a layer two, drops a token, rewards people for using the protocol. And I use the Hop protocol bridge to bridge over. They are also a possible airdrop candidate.
Mm-hmm.
So try to get, if you actually, what I did was I first went into Arbitrum. I bridged over an Arbitrum during using their bridge. I transacted once on there, and then I used Hop protocol to go from Arbitrum to Optimism, and then eventually stake some. Yeah, so I try to hit 3 potential airdrop opportunities there, and gonna just let the ETH just hang out there. Wasn't a lot, but anyway, I set another one of those up. Have a few.
I don't think we've talked about airdrops. So do you mind, like, for the person who just got exposed to that idea for the first time, just explain that a little bit more?
Yeah,
like
it's just a great way.
What an airdrop is and why.
Yeah, I mean, it's the power of tokens, something we've talked about before. It allows you to give your users, the people in your community, some kind of ownership in the token. So typically what protocols will do is kind of look back in the history of the protocol saying who's used our protocol and have they used the critical features like providing liquidity or maybe voting or trading on a platform. And they'll come up with some kind of formula to see which wallets have engaged in activity and take a snapshot. Everything's public on the blockchain, so look back at a specific date, who was involved in the protocol at that time, and then free tokens show up in your wallet. Sometimes you have to go and claim them, but that's the magic of what we refer to as Web3 sometimes. And sometimes it can be pretty big. Steven's had some pretty large airdrops that have turned into 6 figures. We've all gotten a few airdrops here and there, some in the 5 figures. So, I think the layer 2 airdrops are something that's, people consider to be on the horizon just because it's going to be necessary for them to kind of accrue some adoption. May not be anytime soon. By the way, this could be like a year or more out. But yeah. If I'm going to
I think most people are predicting sort of like end of 2022 or very beginning of 2023 for a lot of these, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that would be good. And also, I had to set up a new MetaMask wallet to do it. So maybe I get a 4th airdrop opportunity if MetaMask ever does it. I was at the MetaMask booth at ETHDenver and just chatting with the guy, having a normal conversation. Some guy just walks up in between us, goes, "When token?" And the guy just like, out of nowhere, interrupts the conversation. But the guy did say, it's early conversations. If it is going to happen, it will be a while. So
that's some alfalfa, baby.
Yeah. So he gave like a little wink. No one knows what that means or how they're going to evaluate the airdrop, but it sounds like they're kind of on the same time horizon, maybe a year plus out. We will see. The other thing
pays to play, man.
Yeah, I think so. It definitely pays to be a part of it. If the SEC doesn't, guard you from your airdrop, which has happened in some protocols before. The other thing I was doing was actually interviewing some play to earn games that are kind of in the development mode. Got on the phone with the game developers and we, along with my business partner, interviewed them, kind of trying to understand where they are. And I think the alpha here is, if you get involved in a game after it launches, there's certainly opportunity to make money. But if you're in the seed round, and these are called SAFs often, simple agreement for future tokens, you can get a token potentially at like a 30% discount to their ICO price. So I'll give you one example in the past just to illustrate how this works. So Illuvium is an RPG game that hasn't launched yet. It's on the Ethereum blockchain. I think they did an ICO for their in-game currency in like April of 2021. The price was $88. And right now the token is something like $550. It peaked at $1,800. So still a good price if you would have, gotten in at the ICO price. A lot of times US investors can't get involved in that. But if you're in the seed round, the way a typical agreement works is you will invest in the company at a 30% or sometimes a 50% discount to that ICO price. So you could even, see like a 20 to, 20 to 100% increase in your ROI by getting in early. And there's usually, other terms that come in, lockups, you have to hold your tokens for a certain amount of time, etc. But if you believe in play to earn space rising and some of these games doing well and their tokens appreciating over time, then it seems like a good way to get in. So I'm going to try to see more of these deals come through. And, maybe at some point we'll kind of share them with the community here and find a way for them to kind of participate in some of these deals as they flow through, the ones that we think are good. So that'll be a cool way to reward our little community here. So anyway, that's what I was up to in the past week.
Can I go back to your airdrop thing for a second?
Yeah.
Which ones are you farming? Right. Like, what are the big ones? Arbitrum, Optimism, ZK Sync,
Hop.
Yeah. I mean, so ZK Sync has been the most clear that they're going to do an airdrop. Yeah. So I think I have one wallet on there, and I kind of not so bullish on that one just because I feel like, it's almost everyone's playing that one and everyone has something on there. So anyway, that's the path I've been taking. Onto Arbitrum, make a trade through the hop bridge, which will likely provide some kind of airdrop, and then settling down in Optimism. So I think those are the top three. I was trying to provide liquidity for the hop bridge because I think that's what, if you're a bridge and who you're gonna reward the most is the people providing liquidity.
I forgot about hop. Hop's probably a good airdrop.
Yeah, but I mean the yields were so not juicy, so I just decided
to think about your implied token yields though. I have a feeling when I go back on this year, I'm going to look at like all the yield farming I did, and I probably would have made more if I just farmed like Arbitrum, Optimism, airdrops and called it a day. I mean, that's probably like the freest money anybody could like ever really get in this world, right? You just make like 50 or 100 wallets and just play around with all of them on like Arbitrum and Optimism, and then 2 years from now you just jump into your pool of money.
We've all talked about doing it, and it is boring, grinding work because it's not like fast, and you kind of have to follow the same steps over and over and over again.
Oh yeah, but I did it on like 4 or 5, maybe like 6 wallets, and I gave up. And in my mind, I was going to do 100.
But like if it ends up being like $5,000-$10,000 per little wallet you set up, you're going to be kicking yourself in the ass.
The DYDX airdrop I think peaked at like $300K for like the max airdrop. So, and there, I know for a fact people farmed like 20, 30 of those. Somebody out there made out like a bandit.
I don't know if this will be that, probably.
No, I don't think that'll ever be repeated again. I think that was sort of like the top of airdrops, but it wouldn't shock me if like a good Arbitrum airdrop ends up being worth $5,000 or $10,000, and that's a lot of money across a lot of wallets.
I think it will. Eric, wasn't it you that was saying you wanted to like host a farm party, or was that? Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was.
And like we were trying to figure out what's better, drinking or smoking or both, or which one will allow upper or downer.
It was
weed. You wanted to just get together and farm airdrops, and
yes. I can't do it alone.
Eric, someone has a new house that we could have a nice little housewarming party at. Farm airdrops.
It's going to be our housewarming party, the Alfalfa housewarming party. Bring your laptops.
Do it. Do it. Cool. That was great, Nick. Really juicy.
I did the unthinkable. I told you guys last week I did the unthinkable, and I sold ETH outright at 3,200 right before ETHDenver. I sold ETH into ETHDenver. That's a bold move. And I plopped it into a stablecoin yield on Balancer on Polygon. And that was earning like 13% or so. But that yield's dropped down to about 9% now. I think a lot of people are selling ETH and putting it into stables. But I think I'm gonna have to move back into ETH very soon, because I'm looking at a new NFT project that launches tomorrow. Invisible Friends NFT. That mint is on the 23rd at 2 p.m. Pacific. So that'll be tomorrow at 2 p.m. And it's a highly anticipated NFT.
I think we need to
launch.
tweet this because people are going to miss this by the time this is up. So we should put out something. Not that I think most people in NFT land have heard of it, but maybe some of our listeners haven't. So we'll make sure to tweet this.
So the mint price is 0.25 ETH, and every mint was whitelisted. So there's no public mint. So I'm going to have to buy on the secondary market on OpenSea, and I'm expecting that price to be pretty ridiculously high
Yeah.
on
What
day
do you
one.
expect?
It's probably going to be like a
5?
free 5 ETH for everybody who got like a mint.
I think
or a
I'm
whitelist.
expecting to pay 5
So sick.
right out of the gate.
Yeah.
Eric, this thing's going to dump, right? I mean, like, people were accumulating the NFTs they needed to be part of the whitelist. Those naturally appreciated because more and more people were piling into them in order to get on the whitelist. And, I don't know what the current sum of all those NFTs that you had to purchase in order to be on the whitelist.
It was
But those
up
people
to
are looking to make a profit. They've been in
It
the
was like
trade
6.5.
already.
It was like 6.5 ETH that you had to pay to accumulate all those NFTs to
Right,
get
so
on the whitelist.
If it cost them 3 or 4 ETH, a while back, they've been in the trade for months, 3-4 months. So some of them are definitely look to sell. So are you gonna try to buy immediately, or are you gonna let it settle before you get in?
I'm gonna buy right at the
Oh
beginning,
my
right at
God.
the open,
You're such a wow. Jesus.
Wow. It's a true degen.
right in the middle of a bear market. Just ape right in.
Don't you guys feel like the shit always dies a little bit? Doesn't it always pull back a lot?
I remember
No.
looking at Bored Apes for
Not always.
3 weeks. Bored Apes were under 1 ETH. And I
Yeah.
was like, yeah, I gotta buy one of these. So yeah, they don't always just moon. But
I just have to say, Eric and I, we've talked about this, but to people that don't know, this is the most hyped NFT launch of all time, I think. I don't think that there's been anything with more demand going into the mint and to the public sort of.
I mean, they
secondary
might just
market release.
they might just straight up hit 10 ETH immediately.
Yeah.
It could be
I mean, just
absolutely
for
nuts.
just for numbers, there's 491,000 followers on Twitter. Which,
500,000.
It's absurd.
500,000 people following this NFT project that hasn't launched.
that's like literally every participant in NFT land.
Can you guys
their
sell
mom.
me this? Why should I care? I would look at it and I was like, "Ooh, it's cool," but
Okay, so that's why. Because there's only been a handful of times in my ventures through NFT land where I actually look at this thing, I go hey, this is cool. So I actually just want this thing. And the last time I wanted something was Bored Apes.
That's how you should NFT, is when you actually want something. And
Maybe.
Eric
Maybe.
rarely ever. I think you make much more rational. That's how the best plays that I've made with NFTs are the ones that I actually wanted to own. And then my emotions don't get the best of me. I don't sell when I'm panicked. I don't, I just make the right moves when I actually want to own it as a digital good, a digital asset, a digital collectible that I want in my wallet. That's when you make the best moves. And so I've rarely heard you say, I want this. That's a big deal.
Well, I follow this artist, this 3D artist, Nguyen Nut. And he's like a claymation 3D renderer. And he's working on the Invisible Friends 3D, which I'm presuming you're gonna get airdropped one for owning the Invisible Friend. And Nguyen Nut's art goes for 5 ETH, 7 ETH already.
So, Stephen, if you need another answer, it's like when you own one of these, at least, a certain few number of blue chip NFTs, you know this better than anybody, that it comes with a whole host of rewards and perks. For example, white lists to future things, but also just getting airdropped random shit. I think that this thing will pay for itself pretty quickly. I don't think I'd pay 10 ETH for it. And I don't plan on buying one, but I think I would pay 4 or 5 ETH for it. I'm going to sit back and wait for it to drop personally and hope, but I don't think it will. I really don't. Let's see how this plays out.
I feel like patience always pays.
It's true. It's true.
I'll think about buying one if it dips real hard, but
Yeah. All
I
right.
I've already blown enough ETH.
I'll close this out with my 20-minute segment here really quick. So one thing just that was happening here, and I just thought I would mention it because a lot of our listeners have said to me and people have reached out and been like, I wish you guys were like live, or that you could share your ideas in real time. So I think that one of the things that we generally need to do is, like, when we buy, when we sell, when we see something, we need to pump up our Twitter, is something that I heard. Like, not necessarily our Alfalfa Twitter, but like our personal Twitters. And we could always put it on our personal Twitter, retweet it to the Alfalfa Twitter. But I think in general, people want like the things like this, because otherwise they're going to miss them, because they're not going to listen to the podcast on time. That was just one thing, and I'll commit to that personally and try to be more open about what I'm doing on my Twitter. So I'm buying ETH and Bitcoin. I'm buying Bitcoin every day under 40,000 and Ethereum every day under 2,800. I had stopped sort of buying on a daily basis, and it was like at a weekly basis for a while, and then I kind of stopped when we were basically at all-time highs. But I got back in about a month ago, and I've pumped up the buy values, the numbers over the last week, and there's just nowhere else I'd rather put dollars right now. It just doesn't make sense for me, and this is not short-term play for me, so I'm not concerned about like finding an edge and putting it in stables and waiting for it to drop a little more. I'm thinking like years on this, and I don't think I'll ever see these prices again. So I'm buying with any cash that I possibly have. Generally, I am, this came up a lot during ETHDenver and conversations, but generally I'm starting to cycle out of a lot of my NFTs, starting to kind of take a little bit of a risk-off behavior and stack more ETH. I'm more bullish than I've ever been on ETH, probably because of just being at ETHDenver. But, you know, I've been holding some NFTs that I was waiting for certain price targets to exit out, and I don't think I'm going to wait anymore for those like ideal scenarios, and maybe just get, some of them are just getting my principal back, honestly, and getting back into ETH.
Are you going to sell your mutant?
Nope.
Are you going to sell?
So there's a few that I'm going to hold. There's very few that I'm going to hold, and one of them is the mutant. The other is my MFer, but I think I'm going to sell my MFer at. I was trying to debate if it was like 6 or 7 ETH, but I decided not to get out the other day. So MFer was a great buy, great trade. Bought at 0.4. It's currently at about, it's extremely volatile, actually. I don't know if you guys have noticed. It goes from like 3.5 to 6 ETH in the span of like a day or two. Every day I've been watching it. It's just super volatile.
50% in like a day.
Yeah. So I'm probably going to sell that at 6 ETH. I actually did list it. I should clarify and be transparent. I did list it at 6 ETH. So I could wake up one morning and it could be gone with the way things have been going. And I'm okay with that. I decided like, I'm okay with selling it. That said, I will say that I haven't been this excited about an NFT maybe ever since my mutant. Reason is because, and you know, David Hoffman said this in our chat, actually. Shout out to David. He said there has never been, maybe since CryptoPunks, an NFT that has had this type of organic crypto native culture appeal to it. So this NFT, the MFer, was created by a guy named Sartoshi. And you can read his little Substack post. It'll just get you so excited about what so MFers are. It's so good. And it's just so crypto native. Like, there's no official Discord. There's no marketing. There's no bullshit. It's fully owned. The property rights, the whole thing is owned by the NFT holder, the NFT owner. Like, you can do whatever you want with it. You can create derivatives. It's a beautiful thing. And for some reason, the crypto community is really getting behind it. I actually still think they're undervalued. I think we could see 15 ETH floor on MFers. So that's why I would probably be sad to sell at 6 ETH, but I'd much rather hold for a little while for now. But anyway, a lot of the other stuff cycling out. Cool Pets was another great buy. I plan on selling that and listing that at 4 ETH. Yeah, last but not least, just generally, like, you know, we did that last episode last week, which was on the triple halving. And I kind of came into the episode like, all right, I'm going to ask the questions and be in the I haven't read zone. Anyway, I read the whole thing like twice, the original version and the second updated version. And it's just incredible. Like I've never been more bullish on ETH after reading that and being at ETH Denver and being around the energy of the Ethereum community was just incredible.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at.
And maybe that's a good transition to ETH Denver, because that was one of the things that, the energy was great. There was a lot more people than there was last year. I think last year, I don't know, around 10,000. There was something around 15,000. Felt like 20,000 based upon the lines. But the triple halvening, like the staking yields and the fact that ETH will turn deflationary didn't come up as often as I thought it would in the conversations I had around the conference, at dinners, in line, inside the conference. So I feel like it's still not necessarily baked in to the price. I saw a few people post on Twitter talking about ETH as an internet bond, and they use the yield of like 4.8%. And even the people who are putting these models together are still not forecasting that once the merge happens, this will be like 10+% yield. And granted, that will probably go down over time, but that's because people are staking and locking up their ETH or buying more. And so I didn't really hear the words like deflationary much at the conference. I think, Armand smart to keep buying in with the extra cash. I think it's personally going to keep kind of dipping down, and going to keep an eye on it. Charts look bearish for sure. But surprised at ETH Denver, I didn't really hear that come up too much. So I don't know. That was like one of the first things I noticed, that even some of the hardcore people developing and in DeFi and NFTs and just kind of your random consumer there wasn't brought up very much.
Well, I think that's why. I think a lot of the people that were there are quite different from us. There was a huge variety of types of people, but the focus of ETH Denver is the builders.
Yeah,
and we're not
builders?
we're not doing that yet, I should say. I think our role might be a little different. We're talking about it, and we're more investors than anything.
We're biddling a podcast.
Yeah. And I think that the things that we think about and observe as investors is quite different when you're building. So I had fascinating conversations with builders who people are trying to, there isn't yet this focus on what I wanted to see more of, was like more of a focus on the front end user experience of all these protocols. People still don't get it. Like, they're not marketers like I am. And that sometimes frustrates me, is like, you guys don't understand that, like, no matter how wonderful these products are, if the onboarding experience is not intuitive in 2 seconds, we lose people and we won't be able to onboard people into crypto. And that is one of my like concerns, where I think it's going to take more time than we realize to actually see number go up. But that's okay.
Don't you think we're just going to onboard people like through the apps anyway, though? Like,
I just don't know who's going to make them and how long it's going to take. That's what I'm referring to.
Well, they're already here, and they're pretty. Like, we have some
Argent
that are pretty
is
good.
I think it's a great point, Armand.
We'll
I think
have
it's such
more.
a great point. We're focusing too much on like still
Nerdy shit.
the nerdy shit, the DeFi, like, but we're not focused on the usability, like the UI, UX. That's what we really need.
I disagree with this point, which is good.
It's because you know how to use it, dude. Nobody else fucking does.
Nobody knows how to use this.
We're building the infrastructure of like everything right now, right? It's most important that it like works and doesn't lose people's money, and I think we can kind of go back and make it pretty later. I think like the Venn diagram of people who really would totally be down to figure out how to plug in a ledger and bridge and do all this stuff, but they just get turned off by the UX is probably small. I think I'm just sort of in the mindset that we're going to build a lot of infrastructure, and then 1, 2, 3 years down the road, everybody's just going to go directly from exchanges onto layer 2s, or just all be interfacing with web, with like mobile wallets, like Argent or like whoever else builds nice UX stuff that kind of just sits on top of all the protocols. And then they'll still be us kind of pioneers or crazy people who like to go play around in the forest a little bit. But
I
think that's
wrong with that. Like, the whole part is that we can interact with these decentralized permission protocols, and then if you shove like an intermediary in the middle, like let's say like Celsius, I think they're like a good example, right? Like you can actually get 8-9% yield in your stables there, but what they're going and doing with that money is going playing in DeFi and arbitraging, right? So do you have any issue with kind of these intermediaries kind of sticking them in the middle, whether they're a wallet or an app or anything else? Because you don't have the decentralized permissionless aspect of it anymore.
To me, like decentralization, it's important that it's like an optionality, right? It's like a check on things. It's important for it to be there. But like the reality of the situation is that like 99 out of 100 people who will ever exist on Earth are like not going to ever go play around with the protocols anyway. They are going to opt to use these apps and everything. And that's totally fine. Like I think it becomes a problem if, say, like Coinbase acquired like 69% of like all the validators on the ETH network or something, like that would be a problem. But like centralized like authorities, quote unquote, acquiring users, no, I don't think it's a problem. It's fine to give users that optionality. But and then we also have to realize like you can build I'm pretty sure Argent is non-custodial, right? Like I'm pretty sure,
right.
Like, so we can build these nice apps and user interfaces that allow you to kind of maintain controls of your keys anyway. I just think that the people who are good at like building this stuff at like the smart contract layer and building the infrastructure are probably just not of the mindset of UX, and maybe that's fine. Maybe the UX people can do the UX stuff, right? It's so easy for anybody to just plug into Uniswap, right? Like if you want to build an app that lets people trade and just plugs into Uniswap, it's so easy to do that. That's like the beauty of the composability of DeFi, right? And I'm not saying that like we won't do that eventually. It'd probably be great, but like to me, like it's like I don't necessarily see that as like the most important thing right now. But
so what I'm hearing is like, let the builders build, like the UX and the front end will follow. But back to like my point and Eric's point is like, but we would like to see more of that now. So maybe this is the time that's necessary to properly build, to make sure there aren't like major gaping holes and fraud possibilities in the back end, in the pipes, in the infrastructure. I totally get that. And then people like us will show up to collaborate, to partner, to join these protocols or partner with them in some way to say, let's focus on the UX, let's focus on the front end, let's focus on the marketing, let's get this out there so we can actually onboard people into this space. That's how I see this going. I just don't see very many UX product marketing focused people in the space right now. I see founders and builders. That's like all I'm really seeing. But it was amazing to be around them. I loved it.
I mean, one surprise I had was just how much of the conference was focused on these hackathons. And so to give everyone a little picture, you're looking at like a 5-story building, and on the first and second floors, talks, presentation space, people can give speeches, or maybe on the second or third floor, it was tables of all your favorite, mostly DeFi protocols. And actually, another thing I noticed was there were other layer ones presenting at ETHDenver, like having booths. And I think they were saying it was a bullish sign for me because, they don't have their own conference and community developers. So they felt like we need to go to ETHDenver and put ourselves where the developers are, which is the Ethereum protocol, and try to recruit some and ask them what they were there for. And they were looking for developers to bring applications to their network. So that was really interesting. That saw some layer ones, and of course, layer twos.
Which ones, Nick?
I know
Harmony was the
there,
one,
right?
Yeah, Near, and Near. Harmony, but I think Near had some kind of EVM compatible solution, so it seems somewhat relevant to what they were doing.
Near has a I want to call it a side chain. It's called Aurora. It's not technically it's literally like a smart contract. My understanding is it's a smart contract built on Near that is like EVM compatible and effectively sort of like functions as like a side chain. That's actually something I really had my eye on because they're supposed to launch like $1 billion liquidity mining thing at some point maybe Q1 of this year or Q2, and it's really fun to play around in these new L1s and just farm when they do that and just make like 30% in your stable coins for like a month or two. It's a grand old time.
Seemed like there was a lot of Solana merch getting passed around. So I don't know if that was like a centralized like marketing thing, but there was definitely some merch there. Polkadot. I'm trying to think of others. But anyway, so on the third floor, second or third floor, you kind of have these booths where you can actually go up and talk. And sometimes the lead devs are there. So if you want to have a tech specific question, you could go talk to them directly. And then floors 3 through 5, 2 to 3 floors were actually just tables where people were working. And I think it was open 24/7 where people go in there and set up shops. And the way they structured them was each protocol, like Balancer, will put out a bounty, like a $8,000 bounty for whoever wins our little mini hackathon. And you might build something on Balancer. And there was I'd say it was mostly DeFi centric. There was like an NFT area where you can kind of focus on hackathons there. But then teams would compete. Judges would determine who wins the bounty. So Balancer team decide who won the bounty there. And then they all kind of rolled up into like a bigger competition and presented in front of Vitalik and a crew of judges. Shout out to Jason and his team. I think it was called Skew You, who actually won one of the bounties and got to present in front of Vitalik. So that was pretty cool to kind of be a little part, like watcher of that happen. But I just didn't understand that you'd never been to ETHDenver before, that there was that much dedication to people developing there on the spot, coming up with new ideas. And I'm pretty sure there's going to be new companies that have been founded from this weekend. So that was pretty rad.
Speaking of Vitalik, can I mention my favorite story from ETHDenver? Sure. the four of us plus some other members of the Alfalfa support squad were out for dinner, grabbing drinks at a nice restaurant, and in the corner of our eye and in the peripherals, somebody saw Vitalik sitting at the table right behind us. And of course, Armand and I are like, "What do we say to him? What do we say to him?" And all you guys, everybody else is like, "Nothing. You don't talk to him." but Armand, I saw that twinkle in your eye. You're like, "We got to say something." So on our way out, it was very unassuming. We did not really intrude, but we just said quickly, "Hey man, great speech today. Love your work." And he gave us the shaka. We got a shaka from Vitalik.
I think that's is that your Twitter bio now? Is that
once received a shaka from Vitalik.
I don't think this is technically a shocker.
It's not a
shaka. Not your shocker from middle school.
Is this the shocker?
This is the shocker.
Vitalik did not give us this, to be clear.
You should modify the story because it'd be way funnier if you did.
Oh my god!
Vitalik's mom, I believe. Right?
Yeah, Vitalik's mom gave us a couple of minutes of her time.
Vitalik's mom of Metis?
Yeah, Metis. Yeah, that's right.
Wow.
Nick started grilling the Metis squad, and then Vitalik's mom's like, hold on, let me introduce you to our lead dev. This is a little above my pay grade.
We were asking some pretty simple questions. Do
you have some Metis Alpha for me?
I got some Metis red flags all over the fucking place. Let's stay away from that thing.
Oh no!
All right, be right back. Liquidating.
I don't know. I mean, like obviously the reason that
they couldn't answer some basic questions, right? Like
I forget exactly how the conversation went, but
I think your text was like market cap. They were misconstruing.
No, you were asking about MEV. You were asking about MEV.
Yeah, so we were kind of asking what kind of roll up are you? We're an optimistic roll up. Cool. Can you tell us about your validators? Are we able to become a validator? And like, well, we got these things called validators and rangers. And I was like, oh, it's an interesting setup. Who captures the MEV, which is like the minor extracted value or maximum extracted value. It's essentially, front running the trades inside of a block and arbitraging the opportunities there and asking them, who gets that? Is it your ranger or the validator? How does that work? And he said, well, our layer 2 is so fast that there is no MEV. And, if you're familiar with MEV, you would literally give him a weird, the fuck are you talking about, face. I don't think he really understood it. And then Eric asked, hey, do you have a token? Yes, you do have a token. what's the market cap? And then he answered a price and said it was then he said, oh no, that's the total value locked. But it's basically the same thing, total value locked and market cap. And we were like, well, that's not true, but sure.
That's not the same thing.
It's not the same thing. So anyway, no one could really answer the questions, and just red flags. Maybe they had some marketers at the table, so I'll give them that.
Sorry, Metis. We'll give you a second chance. Send us the right people. Here. Yeah. I do have an important thing for people to know about ETHDenver, because first of all, I highly recommend it. I think people should go. This is all part of ETH Global, and I was just looking up that unfortunately I won't be able to make it, but the one I really want to go to, and maybe we can plan this next year, is ETH Amsterdam. I think that would be incredible. Get out to Europe, get around the Dutch, ride a little bicycle, go to a little coffee shop, talk a little shop.
If Steven can't make the conference in Denver, you think he's going to make the conference in Amsterdam? He's not going to get close to the building.
That's okay. He'll book his flight that morning. He'll get in. He'll get there on his private jet. So one thing that's very, very, very important is that these events are an absolute shit show. Like, we haven't mentioned that. The level of organization sucked. It was bad. And, look, these are builders. These are not people that are like there to put on some like fancy marketing event. This is not a networking event or a marketing event. This is a building event. This is focused on a hackathon. The whole process of signing up, getting in, getting your wristband, the bullshit COVID test stuff that you had to do, it was a shit show. Not only did we have to wait 3 hours for our wristband in the snow, freezing our asses off, then
Uphill
just to get into
ways.
the event. Yeah. Then just to get into the event. So to clarify, you wait 3 hours to get your wristband, then you wait another 3 hours. I think 2 was the best case scenario I heard, to get into the building, to get in to talk. I mean, to get into the talks, to get into the event itself. So the alfalfa here is that it's very important that you sign up to build, that you show up to build, which is what one of our friends did. You get a special pass and you skip the line. You skip both lines. In fact, you don't have to wait the 3 hours for the first line to get your wristband, and you get to just walk right into the event every time. So, show up to do press.
Test the builders?
They did, but they got that to that other line that was on the left.
Oh, they got a special
just
builder
walked right in.
COVID test line. Okay.
Yeah, it's like a VIP line.
I think if this one was 15,000, the next one's going to be like 25,000 people. There was some massive wait list anyway, so they're gonna have to go to some massive venue to solve that, because it was obvious that thing was bursting at the seams in a good way, right? I mean, there was a lot of people who wanted to attend, but in addition to that, I think ETHDenver is also about the parties and the other meetings that are around it. Eric and I were able to join a CryptoPunks breakfast, which was my highlight of the whole trip. Larva Labs.
You guys have a community?
We have a community, guys. No one knew it existed. And, Armand's giving us shit because, he's part of the Bored Apes community, and they kind of centrally, plan these events where they get people together, they throw parties and, put celebrities and DJs in front of everyone, which is a lot of fun. And Larva Labs notoriously holds on to the IP.
We have a vegetarian breakfast. Hello.
Yeah. With Bloody Marys and Bloody Marias and mimosas. So, it was nice. But yeah, our decentralized event was at a vegetarian breakfast, but it was a lot of fun. Larva Labs notoriously holds on the IP and doesn't do anything really to kind of coordinate the community together. I don't think they really care, but maybe that's the going to be the long-term value of CryptoPunks. But yeah, we met a lot of people who've interacted with online, followed online. There's about maybe like 40 of us there. And, CryptoPunks are kind of considered like the OG NFT from 2017. And I kind of did have some high expectations of who would be holding these. And everyone exceeded those, in terms of what they were doing in their own niche, their perspectives around just the general market, what they were building, what they were doing in DeFi. I think someone who had just recently sold a $23 million alien CryptoPunk might have been there. And don't worry, He's got a backup alien CryptoPunk just in case.
Oh my God.
So I don't know, Eric, what were your thoughts on that meetup? You have, we met a bunch of cool creative people there too.
So many cool people. Did you guys see, by the way, that Nicholas and I were featured on the Defiant the Defiant newsletter. You're right there on
Yeah.
the top.
There was a little
Yeah, I feel like I
event of
should show
breakfast.
Yeah, like I think it was just mostly what Nick said. Cool people, and everyone's really welcoming. What they're focused on now is really just like getting the IP back. So this could be bullish. This could be bullish.
Let me,
Good luck with that.
let me show this. Here it is. The Defiant.
Oh, let's see.
If we,
right there,
Who's-
right there.
Look at all of this blank shirt space on Nick that could have had a lot of Alfalfa logos on it. Like, you
Hold
should
on,
have been
what's-
dressed up like a NASCAR driver. Just
Oh, look
Look
at
at also
the
the-
everywhere in the back.
Couple females in this mix. Shockingly.
Yeah.
Who are
That
female
was an
punk holders? I'm
interesting
curious.
insight, actually, was that.
Yeah, which one are you curious about, Steven?
I would have. If you gave me an over or under on number of women at the Punks breakfast, I would put it at like 0.5. I think
You would have lost. You would have
Those are
lost.
builders.
I would
Those
have
are
lost.
builders.
Yep.
Good for them.
Yeah, actually, one thing that people should know as well is like when you interact with crypto community online in Discord and in Twitter, you don't interact with many women. And I've even tweeted this before. I was like, I would love to see more women in crypto and like, you know, help them get jobs or onboard or whatever they want to do. It's just, it would be nice to have more women involved in this industry. And you show up to ETHDenver and there's way more than you thought. So I guess the women are not engaging as much online. They're more in real life crypto people, which was really awesome to see and really refreshing to see. In fact, shout out to our new friend, actually, Evan, an amazing person we met
she's
at the
rad.
event. Yeah.
Disco.xyz, I think is her project. If you guys want to check that out, she made an amazing presentation there.
Yeah, she did.
But I mean, it was still 1 out of 100, right? I mean, for every 100 people, there was 1 female versus 99 males. So I don't think you gotta set the expectations there. I think.
Totally. I think I was expecting like 1 out of 500 though. But yeah.
Right.
There's a lot of women coming in now that we're doing the whole quote unquote Web3 NFT thing. You know, it's a lot more room for like different personality types, more creative people, right? Versus you're just straight Bitcoin anarcho-capitalist guy with a gun protecting his treasure. You know.
There were VCs too, a lot of VCs. I know multiple friends of ours met them on the plane or in the line or things like that, which was actually surprising.
I feel like everybody there was like a
VC.
VC. It's like that was like the default thing. What do you do? I'm a VC. Just VCs
And
everywhere.
there were people closing funding rounds right there on the conference floor. Eric and I walked past one, our buddy. He kind of closed an investment right there on the floor. So there was a lot of deal making happening there too. And there was no shortage of money. I think people were looking at those hackathons, and if you even got close to the top 30, there was an extra pile of money there saying, hey, what do you need to turn this into a company? So it was pretty fascinating how little of a proof of concept do you need? And I think people are just saying, wow, these people are smart enough to get to this point. I'm going to bet on these people that they're passionate about this. They have some skills, and we're going to give them some money to go. So that was pretty surprising. VCs were out and they were handing out money.
Question for you: what percentage of people in the hackathon didn't know how to code?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I would say maybe 20%. I don't know. I only had like interaction with like 3 or 4
That's pretty
groups.
encouraging.
I mean, in the one group that our buddy was in, there was only one developer in the group. It was a group of 3 of them. So just because you're not a developer doesn't mean you can't hack. There's financial models to put together. There's logic to work out, business logic, even within code to work out, analyzing opportunities. Some of these people actually put together front-facing websites. So there was copy to write, sites to get live, logos to design. Anyone can participate in it, and I think everyone was pretty welcoming to people to contribute. And certainly, I didn't really go into the NFT side of the hackathon, but I imagine there would be more of the marketing, aspect there potentially. So room for anyone to play. I know next year I'm definitely going to try to find some teammates beforehand and see what happens.
Yeah. Were you guys surprised by anything? Any just general surprises?
Hmm. Um,
I don't think I found anything surprising other
So it
than
was pretty much
the
what you
length of
expected.
the length of the testing line was a bit of
Oh my god.
a shocker. Kind of
So now
disappointed
that
that
we're
we're still doing that.
yeah, no, it's a shame. So you want to tell us about your notorious night out? You had a big night out, Steven.
Steven
I don't know how
stayed
much
for
you can
2
share.
dinners and then bounced.
Look, David invited me to go to Milk Bar. We went to Milk Bar. We had some drinks. We danced. You know, somewhat together, somewhat in the vicinity of other women.
You and David
that's
Hoffman
great.
dancing. That needs to be
Oh
footage
yeah.
somewhere,
Yeah.
archived.
Yeah, I hope it doesn't exist. And then yeah, no, I was about to get into an Uber and he called me and was like, "Hey, you want to go to Kane's party?" And I was like, "Yeah." So went over to the Four Seasons up at the top, and Kane, founder of Synthetics, it looked like he had like the entire top floor. It was quite the suite. Even had a little grand piano in there.
Oh,
great.
please tell me you got
Found
on the ivories.
I thought about it. I thought about
you
it, but I was
did?
like,
Oh,
this
you
is
did.
not the
You
this is not the time or
sandbaggers.
place.
Oh, that is the only time. That was the time. Oh,
No one wanted to
Oh,
hear
man.
Claire de Lune at 3 a.m. in the morning, drunk and doing whatever they were ingesting.
I don't know. I don't know a lot of party songs. Get on there and just play some really sad nocturne, and everybody's like, "What are you doing?"
wow. All right, I found him. Kane.eth. Kain. L222. Founder of Synthetics.
Yeah, it was cool. There was quite the crowd there. Yeah, it was a good experience actually. But yeah, I wrecked myself. I was so over it and drunk when I came home that I like booked a ticket while I was like half asleep and woke up and saw it. I was like,
I think it was a smart
time
move.
to go.
I was done
I
by
regret
Sunday.
nothing. I lived to the fullest, and I gave it my all.
That's one thing I was surprised about actually for me was the amount of so most of the stuff was not the event itself. It was, the real event happens outside the event. Like as always with most conferences, but in particular this one. I think that the best stuff was the offshoot events, all these different protocols hosting their own parties at different places throughout Denver. And then just meeting people on them, you just got to go with the flow. They're like, we're going here, we're going there. And that's where the fun is. But I was surprised by the amount of drinking and partying these builders like to do, man. In fact, I think actually on the last 2 nights of the event, because ETH Denver, the whole organization wanted to focus on the hackathon, they actually kind of disallowed these events, these after parties and these club events and things like that to get people to focus.
Events,
Yeah. So, but it's not like they didn't happen. People still partied. I was surprised by that because like I don't know, like the events we all used to go to, like Traffic and Conversion Summit. Like sure, people would party, but this was another level. Like
I don't
it
know.
was
I went
actually
to
a lot.
some pretty ragey parties at Traffic Conversion Summit. Like those guys really party.
Yeah, that's true. For
The
sure.
good old days.
So I thought we would transition to just kind of finishing off with what's happening with our friends to the north.
yeah.
Yeah. So Canada, Ottawa, Trudeau. It's been interesting. Who can give the lay of the land here?
Oh, some truckers wanted to protest COVID. Trudeau went all
mandates.
authoritarian and basically banned people's finances. Gave banks permission to shut down bank accounts. Like basically requested. The people are posting all sorts of like crazy things on Twitter. Like people who run crypto related stuff, just letters from the government asking them to turn over user info and stuff. I saw a really funny response where they tried to explain to them that they're like non-custodial, and if you took we suggest you take the time to researched what that means, and then told Trudeau to kindly go stick it where the sun don't shine. But
Wow.
yeah, it's been a really kind of eye-opening and scary display of like
Terrifying.
what's possible in the future, and it I'm not sure if it's bullish or bearish for crypto, to be honest. I mean, we could make all sorts of arguments about that. But like the more eye-opening thing was just like, I think a lot of people just saw like why crypto matters. It was kind of like a back to basics moment, like why it's important to have sovereignty of your own money, why it's important for money to exist at least partially outside the reach of government, and what can happen when it doesn't, right? Because the world is entering like a phase now where like humanity has all this technology, right? This wasn't real, maybe as important in the 1800s when people just had like gold bars and were kind of, paper money, right? But in a world where everything's now electronic, the government has control over all the banks, all the digital money, and is like maybe now even creating their own digital money. We're kind of getting a window into what's possible. Like if Trudeau just decides he doesn't like your protest, unlike some other protests, which were good protests, but this is a bad protest. Your views are undesirable, so we just flip a switch and we turn you off. No more money, right. No more access to the financial system. You become like a non-person. Super scary. I don't know if you guys had
I mean, I don't see how that's different than like, I think of this slippery slope as like what's happening in the US has already been scary enough. What's happening in Australia is like terrifying people in the US. And then obviously what's happening in China is like the most terrifying version of it, where you basically can become a nothing. And so when I see stuff like this in Canada, what's really interesting about the Canadians, what I love about them is that, people tend to joke that they're more passive in nature. But actually what they've really displayed here is that they have been leading with love. And as corny as that sounds, if you watch the videos, if you watch the footage, if you take a look at what's been happening, they know that, first of all, it's fascinating how the word freedom is now being coined an alt-right, right-leaning buzzword. Whoa. Holy shit. That's really scary. And you have these truckers and the community that's being built up around them to support them, leading with love, as I said, because they know that no matter what they do, these people, the law enforcement, the government, Trudeau, are going to come with a certain level of aggression. And they very consciously decided to take this high road of like, we're not doing anything. We're out here supporting our people. We believe in love and freedom, and we're not going anywhere. And the footage that gets released onto the internet as a result of that is so bad. It has become so obvious who the real perpetrator is, who the aggressor is here, regardless of beliefs, regardless of who's right and wrong, that the world is in shock. Like, I really believe that regardless of belief around COVID, people are witnessing something that is like absolutely shocking. And I forget what the page is that is posting on Instagram a lot of the footage, but it's sad, man. And the response that they're using is perfect, because there's always going to be, by the way, in any protest, in any event, there's always going to be a few idiots. The number of those idiots fluctuates. In this case, it does seem like, at my first glance, and like I haven't dove super deep into this, it does seem like the majority of what's going on is very peaceful. And that's great to see. What's terrifying is that we were, Eric and I, and who was there, Eric? We were looking at a photo toward the end of ETHDenver of like police, law enforcement in Canada without badge numbers. And they were unidentifiable. It was one of the most terrifying pictures I've seen in a while. Like when I see that, I'm like, wait, what? I mean, this is really, really bad.
The biggest travesty of all this is it's in the name of an emergency that does not exist, right? Like this emergency of needing to push forward COVID vaccine mandates does not exist anymore. And we've talked about in past podcasts that institutions, governments, maybe not any individual person trying to be evil, but just large institutions and governments typically do not give up the control that we as citizens give them during emergencies. And we talked about, the war on terror as an example before, but COVID is like a perfect example where our default answer to the solution was to give politicians more power and money to solve the problem. And at first, when it is actually an emergency and we all think, a decent chunk of the population might die or get sick, it does seem good. But I think it's, a warning that, when we give up those rights, so whether slowly or quickly, you don't get them back. And so this is an example of, the executive branch just wiping out the power of the legislative and judicial branch in this scenario. Like, they have no say in this, and they're kind of taking this authoritarian usurping power to use their newfound power in an emergency that doesn't exist anymore. So, terrible political play, obviously, but I think scarier for everyone else, specifically in America, that just to understand that it can happen and that the media doesn't necessarily throw a backlash against it. Some of the media kind of played into it, which is even scarier. So as someone watching, it looks like there's this monolithic thing that agrees with what Trudeau is doing. And, on the outskirts, there's people speaking out against it on Twitter and kind of other media, media outlets. But in general, it certainly brings out the like Stephen said, back to basics, having a non-custodial wallet and having hard money to use and send back to each other. Where I play out this use case, it is a little tough to see how this goes. Like, if you have to use Bitcoin, like, you definitely have to use dollars at some point. Maybe I don't really know how that part plays out specifically. Maybe there'll be other off ramps or a cash black market system, will kind of exist if it really got like that. I don't really know what kind of system pops up and how the use case plays out, but I do feel good that on a hardware wallet that no one has custody over, I have quite a bit of Bitcoin just sitting there just in case. And so that makes me feel good. I don't know if we'll actually be able to use it, if and when the time comes, but.
Thank you for bringing that up.
I'm sure you will be.
Well, that was my question. It's because this was clearly to me like a Bitcoin fixes this moment. Yeah. But then in like practical terms, let's say you have your like self custody wallet with Bitcoin in it. Like, you do have to off ramp into dollars or Canadian dollars or whatever at some point. And like, does Trudeau have the power to just like shut down the ramps at every turn? The government of any nation have that power to just like turn off your ability to get into fiat currency?
I mean, seems like they do in Canada.
In theory plays out where control sounds. Yeah, I wonder if Portugal ever get that bad, where people feel like there's authoritarian control. Does other countries take advantage of that, and kind of say, hey, we're welcoming this? I've also seen like cash markets develop. I don't know if this is legal. I shouldn't say their names, but they definitely traded, Bitcoin for cash and vice versa. By kind of meeting up in person and kind of converting Bitcoin to cash that way.
Didn't
certainly at a discount.
Didn't Apple like just begin to integrate like crypto payments to merchants within like Apple Pay, or that's an initiative like that? Mm-hmm. That could help. That could solve it.
And yeah, but still custodial, if the government orders Apple to do something, I mean, they're going to do it. And I will say, this is like a warning. We briefly touched on this in a previous podcast. I forget which number, but where we talked about CBDC, central bank digital currencies, and the power of programmable money. It can be used for good, but can certainly most be used for bad, specifically in authoritarian regimes, because there's more features to the money. They can limit it, what you spend your money on. They could say, listen, truckers, we're not going to allow you to receive donations, and you can only use your money now for rent and food. And so there are these extra powers, and when tempted with the power, large institutions will likely take it in the name of knowing what's best for you. And so that is a little scary and a warning sign for CBDCs. Just like we saw social media as this like great citizen empowering technology that will change the world. It certainly did, but it has been used for bad. And I think we're definitely going to see the other side of that coin with CBDCs in the future. So definitely a warning sign.
I mean, where do you think this all like ends up shaking out, right? Like you can see this going in two ways, right? One way is that everybody starts doing the Canada thing, and they start making like this really concerted effort to just lock down all of the on ramps, right? Because you still got to be connected to the local currency at some point, or just making it illegal to own this, or they try to implement some like really onerous sort of like KYC layer on top of crypto, where they try to like whitelist protocols, and these protocols have like, you know, KYC, it's like your wallet address is linked to you, all these like terrible things, right? That could happen. Or what is the alternative, that we magically get good regulation and just sing kumbaya? Like I'm struggling to see like how this plays out in the short to midterm in like a positive way. Like, do you have any positive hopium scenarios to throw at me?
I mean, I think what you want people to lobby for now is, one, we want the government to use the channels that exist to do that. You know, we want them to use the legal process. If it comes to, you know, shutting down someone's bank accounts, use the legal process that exists. And we don't want that power to rely on the executive branch. The other thing is to lobby for non-custodial wallets and them to exist. The fact that you can hold your money in a MetaMask wallet and no, you know, central authority can do it. And yes, it'll be tough to convert that to fiat, but I think there'll be other things that will pop up. If it's really that necessary, we have to kind of like maintain that power to have a non-custodial wallet first. And, you know, if it comes down to being that scary,
that's all well and good, but what do you think will actually happen? Like, we can lobby, but like how does like the game theory sort of play out here on a political level, you know?
Well, can I not talk about the game theory, but let me talk about something I just saw at ETHDenver. Like, Andrew Yang was there on day 2 talking to the crowd of Ethereans and builders. So he's recognizing how important this is. We've also seen it in U.S. Congress, like how that's becoming more a part of the conversation in both good and bad ways, but in sometimes good ways. So like, that's reason for hopium in the near term.
That doesn't seem like near-term hopium though, right? Like, I feel like we all agree that crypto is one on like a long time horizon. It's one amongst the youth. Every one of us like doesn't buy gold. I don't know anybody under the age of like 35 that buys gold, right? But we're still all governed by like a bunch of boomers who live in like an old era and who have just different, you know, incentives. And there are these just different power structures that exist right now. And it's like scary to think that it's going to be like quite literally like decades before like we are those people in power, and we're kind of like rewriting that. Like, it's just scary to think that we might like end up in this like 10 or 20-year war, you know?
Yeah, I think it's likely. I think everything's going to look. I think we're thinking too much as like Americans as well. But if we stick to that perspective of thinking as Americans, I think things are going to get more authoritarian. I think we're going to follow a lot of what has happened in Australia, and it looks like Canada just basically usurped us overnight in terms of being more authoritarian with those moves recently. But I do think that is going to have to make a U-turn. If it does not make a U-turn, I honestly think that if there's anything that could spell the end of like American supremacy, it's that. People will leave this country. People will go to the places, look, some people will have no problem living like that. Back to last episode. This is a personality issue. Some people are okay being told how to live. Some people want to be told how to live. But those that own crypto, want sovereignty, believe in libertarian values, feel that they are self-sufficient, and would like to be able to vote with their feet and be in a place that aligns with their values, will leave. There's no fucking way I'm staying in a country where my bank account can be frozen over some bullshit. Like, that's just not happening. And so those other problems of like on-ramps and off-ramps, I don't think they'll exist for the people that need them, that care. For the people that don't care, it's irrelevant. And so if we have to move to Portugal to resolve that, then you do. But I don't think that America is going to let it get to that point. It would honestly be like something akin to like civil war before that happened, because I think too many people in this country care about freedom I know that's become a buzzword now, which is absolutely hilarious. Like, I can't believe that that is something that we're even discussing. Like, freedom is something that is being used to like label now, and it's like group thinking. But I think that that's a value that's innate in this country, and some U-turn will happen. I think things will get more authoritarian over these next few years, but a U-turn has to happen. If it doesn't, I don't see how this country can survive.
I just think we're one excuse / narrative away from that happening. You know, as soon as someone presents a good enough argument for the good of all people, with the presumption of good of all people, you're one narrative from flipping that switch, which is really scary to me. But I think, at least in the short term, people will see that you are safer to have, a decent portion of your net worth in crypto than you are having it in Chase or Wells Fargo. How it plays out from there, I think, they're coming after the non-custodial wallets for sure.
It depends on the crypto though, right? Like you don't want to be holding a whole bunch of Ethereum if the US decides to go to war against Ethereum, right? Not in the short run anyway. Like, you will lose like 90%, right? But it could be like an interesting strategy to have like actually like maintain exposure to the dollar via like stable coins, but something that's not USDC, because they can like blacklist your wallet and stuff like that. But like holding like an emergency thing in like DAI, right? Something that's truly sort of like decentralized and like maintains stability. Yeah.
So let's say DAI, is over collateralized by Bitcoin and Ethereum, I think 150% or so. But let's say in the case where you do think, Bitcoin and Ethereum are going to crash due to some regulation, but you do want to hold crypto. Is DAI the thing you want to hold? Because, is there, I guess within the protocol, is there any risk at all, as, with obviously there might be liquidations in that protocol. So is there any risk to DAI where you see a huge dump in Bitcoin, in Ethereum, in Ether?
I mean, there's always some risk, right? But we did go through the COVID crash. That was that was like a full like 3 sigma event right there. That was like pretty gnarly, and the protocol held up. It is over collateralized, and I don't know. I think it's got a lot of Lindy at this point. It's been around, and it seems like it will continue to stay around. It's proven itself over a lot of events. Like, DAI would probably be where I would park my money if the world started getting, like, if the world gets sketchy and like things were kind of getting weird in the US, like, I would probably stop holding USDC. I would probably transfer it all to other stables. Either Tether is not a bad choice, honestly. At least they're domiciled like out of they're sort of built on being like the anti-regulatory coin, right? But I think I would still prefer DAI, because DAI, you just have to sort of trust math and code, right?
Follow-up question. You said something, Stephen, about like, I wouldn't want to hold Ethereum even in a non-custodial wallet. You could lose 90% of it. How? What happens? What would the government? What are the steps?
You just saying price goes down.
Yeah, like in a scenario where you're like, I want to leave because like the government's trying. Like, in the short run, that reads to me like a scenario where the government is trying to actively crack down on crypto, and there's no world in which like the U.S. and like a bunch of other sort of big nations get together and try to coordinate a crackdown on crypto where your Ethereum doesn't just completely go to hell in the short run, right? Now, I think ultimately in the long run, like they can't keep it down, right? It's just like sort of inevitable. But I think people who are living under this illusion that like Bitcoin and Ethereum kind of go up when the world goes into chaos, that's not. I don't see any evidence that that's true in the short to medium term, right? Like you want to still keep exposure to the dollar, because for better or for worse, like if you need stability, like there really is nothing better in the world. There's like a reason why everybody uses it, why it's like the standard for everything, as much hate as we give it. So yeah, I'm not going all in Ethereum and if the world becomes uncertain. So if anything, it's the opposite.
if anyone wants to learn about DAI, you can go to makerdao.com and learn about DAI and how it's created and how it's backed. You could also buy DAI on any decentralized exchange if you wanted to.
Yeah,
play
so
around
DAI
and learn about it.
is totally decentralized and not backed by US dollars like other stablecoins, right? It's backed by the collateral on MakerDAO.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool.
And it's like probably one of the most underappreciated things in the world, honestly, because as much as like people like to say, oh, Bitcoin fixes this and everybody in these third world countries needs Bitcoin, like it's too volatile, and it may be a pipe dream that it's ever sort of like a reserve currency. Like I think there's a high probability that that's like a complete pipe dream. What really matters to people is like stability and the ability to, transact in their daily lives and have predictability. And the only thing we have really created that does that's like outside of the US dollar system and has truly proved itself to be stable and reliable is DAI. It's like an amazing thing. It's like this dollar-based thing that's purely digital that has no ties like at all to like the actual dollar and can't be confiscated or anything like that. And it's great. It's great that we have that, and you don't really know you need it until you do sometimes. But
You want to hear
people should look into Maker.
You want to hear another like reason to be bullish ETH is because I think you're totally right about this DAI being so important. And like Justin Drake mentioned it on Bankless, he said like DAI is really important, but we don't have enough of it. And the reason is because ETH price just isn't high enough. So if ETH price goes higher, that's more collateral to print to mint more DAI. So I think like guys like Vitalik don't care about money. They don't care. Like Drake doesn't care about the price of ETH, but they do care about what the Ethereum blockchain can mean for the world. And if DAI is one of those use cases, then they do recognize that. And now they're like changing monetary policy to make ETH price go higher. Even if they don't really care about ETH price, they care about maybe something like DAI.
Yeah. I mean, that's like the optimistic case, right? For the world, right? The optimistic case is that the US sort of realizes they can kind of maintain dollar hegemony by kind of moving into the stable coin space and kind of enabling the proliferation of dollars through the crypto landscape, where crypto is sort of inevitable. So why not leverage that to kind of like entrench the power and influence of the US and the dollar? It seems like obvious to everybody that like 100 years from now, like, we're going to be using these rails to settle payments in one way or another. That's like sort of like an inevitability. It's just so much better than all the existing systems we have. And you would like to think that we just like sort of enable this world. My hope is that through like intelligent regulation and all of this, like we enable a world where like people can still live in the Wild West Bitcoin world where they're self-custodying and playing with these like crazy protocols that are dangerous and may lose all their money. But they won't want to, because we'll build this other experience where they can kind of like opt in, to using it, even though it may be regulated in a particular sense. But it's just such a better experience for people, and it protects like all their data and privacy and does all these things that we really want. And so, they use those rails, they use those systems, they use those apps, they use those stable coins, and like the world is like a better place. And it's still great that we have Bitcoin, because I think it is important to have like a check on these systems. But I don't think it's necessarily like the best thing for the world that Bitcoin becomes the system and we all just start denominating in Bitcoin. It's much more likely that we either use the Bitcoin network or the Ethereum network, likely the Ethereum network, the way things are going, to enable like these sort of dollar-based payments, and like the world keeps using dollars and currency, but in the digital form. And then we also get these checks and balances against like, central bank and government largesse. That's kind of the hopeful scenario, right? But will we get there? I don't know. It looks shaky right now.
I like it. Did anyone drink today?
I haven't had a drink in 3 days. This is the longest I've gone without drinking.
Wow, it just became a therapy
I'm
session.
saying this publicly so that I can like have some accountability.
I love it.
I like
those are
honestly
the-
can't remember the last time I went 3 days.
That's amazing. That's
Everyone
amazing,
listening,
Steven.
retirement life's not. Sometimes it's got its pitfalls. Being retired.
Well, the reason I mentioned that is I think it's the first time that we're all sober. And actually, this is personally my favorite episode so far. I had a great time today.
I feel very self-conscious
really
about
good.
myself personally. This is very hard for me.
It does help to smash some mezcal. All right, boys, I think we'll wrap. That was great.
Right. Let's do it.
Good talk.
Yeah, any last no, I think that's it. Share this episode. It was Armand's personal favorite. And DM us on Twitter with your email. All right, see you guys. Peace.
Later.
Peace.